Hello and good afternoon, everyone. A warm welcome to our today's exclusive Insights webinar, The Future of Product Asset Data Management. Well, it's not only about the future, there's a lot about the present as well, because we're going to show a lot of the system and how Danfoss has implemented CELUM. Also a bit of the past in there, so just to complete the Christmas Carol analogy here. Let me quickly remind everyone that this session is recorded. I hope everyone stays on live and focused anyhow, because there's also the chance to ask questions which will be answered by the hosts right after the webinar. So who will be speaking today? Very happy that Mia Rasmussen, Senior Product Owner, Digital Asset Management from Danfoss, is here with us today. Welcome, Mia. And next to her, there is Reinhard Eisel, our Head of Product Management at CELUM. I myself, I'm Martin Babri, Chief Marketing Officer here. You will see me again at the very end, jumping in again for the Q&A session, but then with no further delay, handing over the screen and the stage to you, Mia.
Thank you.
To show us what you have here.
Thanks for inviting me. And we will have 45 minutes. I think that the topics that we are talking about today could be doubled or tripled, but anyhow, I'll try to keep it as short as I can. The agenda that we will go through is a short intro, how digital asset management is in Danfoss, a system overview of our application, the main customizations that we have done together with CELUM, and then do a little deep dive into some of the customizations listed here, our workspace folder approach, constraint and GDPR, image editor, Shutterstock, and our product reference. The short introduction about myself. My name is Mia Rasmussen. I'm Danish, living in Denmark, and I have been working in Danfoss since 2005. All the years have been something about, copywriting, technical documentation, handling files, optimizing the structure of files and communication of files, images, drawings, and photos, and so on. So my entire employmentship in Danfoss has been in this area of work. Right now, I'm the Senior Product Owner of DAM in Danfoss, and I was also responsible for the implementation and ongoingly expanding CELUM application and functionalities in Danfoss, and I have been doing that since 2016. Danfoss, our wording is that we are the leading technology partner in energy efficiency and sustainable solutions. We are a privately held organization with 42,000 employees, with almost 100 factories around the world, and also have customers in more than 100 countries. So we are a global company, and we are definitely an engineering company, which you can also see on some of our focus area in the DAM application. A little bit about DAM in Danfoss. So if we start here on the left side, we partnered up with CELUM in 2016 by talking about all the requirements that we had and if CELUM could meet our requirements and how they could do that. So we ended up partnering with them. Also because the purpose of partnering up with CELUM was to have a professional DAM system in Danfoss. We previously went from a SharePoint solution, which is also very fine for handling and storing some files, but it's just definitely not a DAM system, and it couldn't meet all the requirements that we had, and definitely not the ones that we had in the pipeline. What we wanted to do was to have a centralized asset management where we could have streamlined access and we could reuse all our scattered assets. We also needed the organization and the management to recognize the asset value, because there's a high value in the assets, and if they are lost and not reused, it's a huge amount of effort being lost. We also need a structured asset management So we need to establish a structure for the growing number of assets that we have and the complex structure. We also need to improve efficiency, so align the processes and enhance all our workflows. We also needed to meet the fact that we had a high scale data. So we have huge data loads, we have extensive node references and a very complex matrix when we allocate assets. And you will also see a little bit about that later on. And then again, we just wanted to have a professional partner who could also tell us about the new dump trends. So we didn't need to spend time on that part and could also be, coming with a lot of experience helping us out with some of the concrete use cases and discuss that with people who have tried a lot within the dump area for other customers and partners as well.
So maybe if I can jump in here to ask one question. I mean, these statistics that you showed here are quite amazing. It seems to be quite a huge system. How does this feel for the users? How are they happy with the system you've built? Can you tell us a bit more about that? How is the performance for them?
Yeah, so the performance is very good, and we have also enhanced whatever we can in the background to have a better performance. So we have both internal users of the dump hub and external users. So you can see here that we have potential 42,000 view-only users in the dump application, because that reflects the number of employees in Danfoss. And we have 250 power users. Those are the ones that can edit the files and maintain the files. And we have 300,000 assets in dump hub, which are allocated more or less to 800,000 code numbers. So this, of course, calls for a huge performance and an accurate node referencing hierarchy setup in order to handle this amount of data. And we have learned over time to improve this again and again. So it works very, very well in the performance. You would also be able to see that when I do some searches, that it's, even though it relies on a huge amount of data, the performance UI-wise is really good. For the externals, we also have a lot of, if I go down here, external downloads. So worldwide on Google and all our downstream channels, like our website and our product store, maybe some of our customers' web shops that are hooked up to our API. We have every month an average of 40 million external download of our assets. So that's a huge number. And internally in the dump application for Danfoss users, as you see here, we have more than 10,000 downloads of our assets. So it's a highly used application, and therefore we also need both security, stability, and a high performance.
Okay, thank you very much. One short follow-up. You spoke about growth as well. So currently you have 300,000 assets and 800,000 SKUs. How do you expect this to grow in the future?
Every time I try to plan this, it's always exceeded. So it depends on, Danfoss does quite a lot of acquisitions. So buying in new partners and companies, there the product codes will just expand. So they will also be more than 1 million of the product codes. And I think we will also not that far away see us extend 500,000 assets.
Okay, thank you.
The next thing I want to show, just to understand a little bit about the overall picture here, is the system overview. So meaning the dump hub application, how we do this in Danfoss. And I want to go through this in details. I'll start from the bottom. So this is the first thing that happened with an asset. It is being ingested via our upstream channels. And this can happen via user ingestion, meaning the user goes into dump hub, upload an asset. We have upload widgets, where external photographers, marketing agencies can also upload assets. We have the tool, the mass imports, for example, for larger migrations from legacy systems or new business acquisitions. We have imports. That's also a way to have assets into dump hub. We have the Shutterstock synchronization, and we are also making an ingestion API from our PLM system, because we have a lot of engineering drawings that we also want automatically to handle and publish via dump hub. The red area that you see here is our dump hub. We call our dump application dump hub. That's the internal name that we use. And as you see here, all the assets are then categorized into these different asset types, being photos, all kinds of photos, both product photos, but also application photos or environmental photos. It can also be people photos, you know, management handshake photos, and so forth. Drawings, we have 140,000 drawings in the system currently, mostly being photorealistic drawings that we can use for representing our products. We have approvals that covers declarations and declarations and certificates. We have documents, which is also a huge asset type, because that also is from collateral, being posters, roll-ups, to being technical data sheets, white papers, and so forth, press releases. We have audio, still small, it's podcast, sounds, and other audio files. Then we have software, being mostly firmware on some of our products. Videos, being introductional videos, product presentation, but also training, so forth. And then the last one is DTP packages, meaning InDesign files or affiliate DTP packages that is sort of the source file for a lot of the documents in the system. So these are the 8 asset types that we work with. Inside the dump engine here, as I will call it, we have a lot of activities, and there will be much more than those that I just cherry picked here, but I guess that all of you working with a dump system right now know that it's a lot of disciplines that a dump hub is serving. It's uploading, categorizing, subscribing, sharing, downloading, searching, versioning, and so forth. So a lot of things is going on and handled by the 250 users, super users in the system. To the left, outside dump hub, you can see that we have Danfoss product data. That will be all our products. Some refer products to products, code numbers, SKUs, but it's the product that we sell. So from our product information management system or from our SAP ERP system, we get a product structure, a hierarchy of all our products. And this is where we have 800,000 plus SKUs or code numbers or products in the system that is structured in a taxonomy inside here. So we have more sources here, which we then put into something we call product reference service, PRS, because this is unifying all the different structures data because it comes from different sources. So here we unified before we then synchronize it into dump hub. This means that these every night, all code numbers, new code numbers, and updated code numbers are synchronized into dump hub, and all the assets in here can be allocated on these code numbers. After all the tagging and the allocation to code numbers have happened in here and the asset is released, if that's a necessity, which it usually is in the life cycle, then we go to something that we refer to as the asset exposure. This is where we have the asset API, where we towards our publishing channel expose all the metadata that we have here, or at least selected the majority of the metadata from here into the asset API, also with a link to the binary file. So the binary file that we refer to in the asset API are then connected to the CDN. For those don't know so much about the CDN, in short, very simplifies, it is if you, for example, are in Latin America and you click on an asset on a website or something, it might take a few milliseconds to download the file, but once you have done it once, it stays there for a period of time so that the next people in Latin America and that region where the CDN is also set up, then it will be much faster and the performance is much better. So it's just something that a lot of people are doing, and we're doing it as well with a huge success. Also referring to the 40 million downloads in average per month, this is needed. So we refer to the assets binaries in the CDN. Moreover, in this asset exposure, we also handle asset events so that the downstream channels can request on events, meaning that when an asset is either created, updated, or withdrawn or retired or something like that, they can then subscribe for changes, and then they can have it right away, every week, every month, or whatever they set up. Then they can ask for changes in these assets, so they don't need to have a full sync into their application. Then we have the last part here. That's our what we call the publication channel or downstream channels. We of course have Google, so the minute that we expose them on the other side of the MZ, they are of course available for Google to index. They are also available on our website, danfoss.com, in our web shop. And we also are right now making a connection to YouTube that will be here in a couple of months. So that will also be a downstream channel that we can push the videos directly to a publishing channel. And then we have a variety. We have currently 10 or 20 plus internal and external application apps, website, and so forth that are utilizing our assets that we expose here via the asset API, where they use the links, where they then take the asset binaries from the CDN. And this is very much growing every week. We tend to see new requests from users that they want to utilize our assets.
And it's quite spectacular overview there of how you integrated your system. And I think it's also quite cool and unique approach where you have very little in terms of individual integrations with individual systems, but basically one layer that basically exposes the relevant information. Is that correct?
Yes, and we really try to uniform this one, so it's more or less a plug and play and the same approach for each. So we don't tailor make all the information to each application, because there will just be too many and the speed and performance will not be good enough. So we have sort of said we have a standard layer that the publishing channels then hook up to. Yes.
And how easy was it for you to basically get to the point? How was the process of building this integration for you?
How the process was?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was long, that's for sure, because one thing is that we needed to move away from the old SharePoint to a professional dump system, and it was also just a change in how we work with things, and then also an internal anchoring and telling our stakeholders in Danfoss that the importance of these dump assets, and also when people came to us asking for specific requirements, that we also often we just have to say, we hear you, but we cannot tailor make something for you. We have to do a generic approach, and that was a learning curve, and we are getting there, and that has really opened a lot of door and simplified the system, because now all the optimizations that we do and customizations that we extend Danfoss with, they will also go through all. So we don't need to say, okay, we have a change here, all the applications have to change accordingly, because we have it in one pile.
That's super valuable feedback. Thank you.
Welcome. I won't go through this slide in details, that will take too much time, but I think that you will get the slides afterwards, or you can revisit the recordings. But these are some of the main customizations that we have done together with CELUM in our Damp Hub. There's much more, but these are sort of the high runners, and I will just go through them by the headline here. We have the upload request widget, where external partners, as I mentioned before, photographers and advertising agencies, and maybe also internal infrequent users can upload assets. Even though they don't have power use access, they can still upload the assets in Damp Hub and then initiate a workflow later on. We have the Shutterstock integration that I will come back to on a later slide. We also use Active Directory synchronization, so meaning that all the 42,000 employees in Danfoss can be selected in our dump system. I will also show that a little bit later on, but that makes the work much more seamless, and the update frequency and automation about people leaving, retiring, and so forth, much more smooth. We have image editor URL generation, which I will also come back to on one of the slides. The same with attachment, where we actually have files that are attached to an asset, not being an asset. I will also touch upon that. We have our complex matrix of the product reference allocation. We have document set overview because we have huge amount of documents. For example, if we have one brochure, it is translated in 38 languages. It can have a variety of different versions, and people sometimes want to see this in one clean overview where they can also do different actions from that overview. So we have made a customized overview to serve that purpose. We also have an asset ID generator. So we need a unified 23-digit document number that we can use and recognize easily in the system. We have constraints management. I will also return to that. I think all of you know about GDPR and the necessity about that. And we have also made a special customized asset notification component because the standard asset notification in the system weren't sufficient for our advanced use cases, but I will also briefly touch upon that one. We have a special versioning in our system. And then at the end here, we have coming up a YouTube integration, which makes it possible for users to upload a video in Danfoss and then from within Danfoss push it to specific Danfoss channels on YouTube, meaning you don't have to maintain the video in more places. And when you have pushed it via Danfoss to YouTube, then YouTube returns the statistics, the simplified statistics into Danfoss. So in Danfoss, you can see how many views did this video have and so forth. So integrating the system. Now I want to deep dive a little bit about the workspace folder approach that we have in Danfoss, because I think when we started partnering up with Danfoss, we wanted to construct the backbone of our system based on the CELUM offering. We were told, okay, how do you want your workspace folder structure? And I was just like, well, I don't know. So I asked about how other customers in CELUM has done this folder structure, because we easily could see that this is not something that changes all the time. So we had to get it right from the beginning. And I know that a lot of others are splitting the workspace folders into department because there is a clear department responsibility, or the scope is more split into the departments of the business. Not so much in Danfoss. So we couldn't split it in departments because the same asset could be very interesting or very relevant across these departments. And the structure here we saw more as a taxonomy, meaning an asset can only be one place at a time. It cannot be duplicated or replicated into more areas of this folder structure. So we decided to go for asset types. If you remember before, I mentioned the 8 product types. Those are the ones that you see here, and I just expanded, for example, photos. So we decided on asset types because it was much more split responsibility-wise, that people had a responsibility for documents or drawings. Also, if people had access to the system, they need to get trained. We have a mandatory training before you can get, editor rights in here in the system. And by putting permissions on each of the folders here, we could permit users to have power or editing rights, maintenance rights on one, for example, for documents, but not on drawings. So this made it a little bit more comfortable and secure for all the people, and that not everyone have the access to everything in here in order to edit it, but also due to training. So you only need to be trained in the document asset disciplines and not in drawing. So you could have the permissions set specifically on these folder, and there is quite a difference between our approach from asset type to asset type because the usage is different. So we put permissions here on the folders. If you then expand each, it's the same if you also expand on, for example, documents and audios, you will see that the next level of nodes here in the structure is our life cycle. We incorporated the life cycle in here. So we have in progress, this is here where you upload the file. You could then move it into pending and approval. So you might need someone else in the organization to approve the publishing or release of the asset, or you just need 4i approval or additional people to enrich the metadata on the asset. Then you publish this to publish it to released. You can archive it, you can retire it, and you can also temporarily withdraw the asset in case something comes up. So here we have incorporated the life cycle in the folder structure.
And that also basically means that you that the life cycle also governs access, right? Because probably more people have access to released assets than in progress or retired assets, correct?
Correctly. So we have, for example, on the view only audience in our DAM Hub, they cannot see in progress photos and they cannot see pending approval. This is hidden for them, and also the withdrawn is just not visible. So here you also maintain the permissions with it's a very good approach, at least for our use cases.
It's a very cool approach, and it's cool to see that basically you've used the flexibility that the system grants you to basically come up with your own solution, and that is tailor-made for Danfoss. Just one more question to that. So how did you basically arrive at this? Who did you involve? What was the process again, maybe a bit, to get to where you are there?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, it was just we were asked, how do you want the structure? And I saw other examples from customers which was sort of the same. And then we looked into our current setup back in the SharePoint days, where we had what worked, what didn't work. And we also talked a lot with we have some super users in the business, and we asked them, okay, if we do this, how will that be? And if we do another thing? And then actually it was in a discussion with some of the consultants that you have on your side that was part of the implementation project that came up with, okay, how about also adding the life cycle here? Because I was kind of like, okay, how to connect the life cycle together with this one. So this was in close cooperation, and this was not the first shot. We also tried, what is the pros and cons, and what can we do and what not do in order to do this, because we also there's a lot of people that are a little bit afraid that a huge bunch like drawings, where we have 136 drawings, if you have permissions here, there was also some kind of maturity and trust in the system and in the user saying that, okay, but what about people, John Doe over here, if he changes my drawing, what will then happen, because he also have permissions and so forth. But we easily also talk to people and say, yep, calm down, everyone don't want to, interrupt your asset. And we can also put on notifications on the different assets so you know what happens, so you can be warned in case your assets are then changed. So there's a lot of debate also internally to make this fit.
Yeah, great learning. Thank you.
One of the things I wrote here that we also use notification in the workspace folder structure. We do that quite a lot, and I think that will also extend over time. One of the examples is that if I am inside the DAM Hub, this is our metadata, and I am having the asset status pending approval, which correspond to one of the folders here. I also have it as a metadata, it's connected. So if I have pending approval, and I put a name, I put my own name here, into a moderator approval on photos. That means that when this one asset status is sent to pending approval, it's pending my approval, I will get via the DAM Hub notification customization, I will get an email with this specific asset that you also see up here, saying just have the most important data here, and this is pending my approval. So I get a push on that I need to do something here. This is used quite a lot in the system in a lot of different use cases. So we reuse the setup on DAM Hub notifications. Yes, I think that was what I had about the folder approach. The next thing I want to talk about, which I think that a lot of you also recognizes from your daily work, if you work with digital asset management, is all the constraints and GDPR. We have an information field set called constraints, and the constraints consist of restricted use, copyright, and GDPR. So in here, if I have restricted use, I have some restricted use information. If I check mark copyright, I have copyright information and maybe some licensing, some information that I can use and also later on search for. And then we have GDPR. And I want to show you just in the system a little bit about how we did the GDPR just firsthand in the system. I will just find it here. Just a second. It is here. I'll go into search. This is our queue environment, by the way, so there might be some odd text and so forth. But you take, if you have the assets that I showed before, and I go into the edit metadata, I'll just zoom a little bit here to make sure that you can see. I will scroll down to the constraints, which is here. So if I just close these, you can see these are check marks, and if I click, they expand with further information down here that you can enrich with information. On GDPR, it's a little bit special because we needed more information on GDPR. So if I click GDPR, you can see there are 3 fields that needs to be filled in or can be filled in. The first one is the employee identification. So let's say that there are a person, an employee depicted on the photo, it has to be written here. And this is directly in our AD with the 42,000 employees that we have. And let's say that I was depicted on a photo. I would like to write my name here so that I will always know that I have been depicted here. I can also choose other people. And the purpose here is, of course, that we have the registration of the people, but also so if I leave the company or I'm not interested in being part of that photo or maybe in that campaign that the photo is used in, I can ask to be put away so that we can search on MIA, on GDPR, and then remove all the assets where I am depicted on. So it's also for search purposes. We also have a free text field for non-employees, if it's customers, partners, or other stakeholders that is not part of the AD. And then, of course, we have some comments. Additionally to the GDPR, if I was depicted on this photo, then a rule, at least in Danfoss, I think it's pretty official rules for GDPR, is that you need to have a GDPR consent document that I sign saying it's okay that you expose this asset with me in it. And this document, we just needed to store it somewhere. And actually in the beginning, it was in the HR department, but you know, the link between HR department and to the data system, that's very far away and it's not very easy to find. So we introduced this attachment functionality where you can attach a file to an asset. So if I want to attach the contract or you know the consent document that I have signed that they can use me depicting on this photo, I just click here as a user and then say MIA consent, just some kind of comment, and then I say select the file. Then I will go to this one and say constraint John Doe it is, and it says successfully uploaded file. I will click save. Then I can see over here, I have a tab called attachment. If I go over here, I will see the GDPR consent attachment. And this one will then be stored here for further, you know, then HR people or whomever can see this file and they can get this file if they are in doubt. And there can, of course, be multiple files uploaded here. One of the smart things is here that we thought in the beginning that the consent document itself should just be uploaded as a file, but then it became an asset. And this is not an asset. This is a file information or an information that should be attached to the asset and not an individual asset itself, because then people, when they search for something, they will see this. And this is also put on permission. So everyone in the system can see what you see here, that there is a consent document uploaded, but they cannot open it. I can open it because I'm an admin and I'm allowed to. So it was also due to the GDPR rules. Not everyone inside Danfoss should be able to see that I signed this paper. It's only a few people who are permitted to that. So we also have permissions on top of this one.
That's actually interesting that you specifically have chosen that this should not be like searchable or repurposable for other users, because out of the box, other customers would have done this with asset relations, for example. But of course, in that case, the asset, the document will also consist of an asset, and you could link it with other pictures where this person is depicted, which would kind of be beneficial maybe. But here, interestingly, you've chosen that it should not be an asset explicitly. That's kind of interesting. Yeah.
Yes, because there was too many other things, because if this becomes an asset, it has another life and it has another maintenance purpose in Danfoss with these, as I mentioned, the publishing, and people can find it in search. And in order to hide all these things, that would just be too complex. And this was much more simple. And also, it's not an asset. It's just a piece of metadata put into a file. So, yeah. So we use that quite a lot. We also use this attached approach on, for example, printing files. So if you have a brochure or a big catalog and you want to forward that to a printing agency for print, still happens out there from time to time that you print something, but you also know you cannot just send a normal PDF with all the files. You need to have a spine and a cover separately with crop marks, and then you have the inner pages and so forth. So these files, this printable variant of the document, for example, or the catalog, can also be an attachment and not an asset in itself, because here it's just like a normal PDF and not with this fancy cover and stuff like that. So we use it for several things. We also use it for terms of use for an asset. For example, if you have a logo, we have some product logos, and here you have some terms of use also on our certificates and declarations. So when you use, for example, an icon for a product, there is both copyright, but there is also terms of use. Then we can upload the terms of use to that logo or that icon as well.
Yeah, interesting.
Yep. I will just go back. Let's see. I just find the right spot here. Sorry. Yeah, now I'm back. The next one that we did was edit image. In here we have the standard image editor where you can download, but we expanded it with color space, so you could download it in a RGB or a SMYK, or you could also utilize a clipping path. I will just show you in a second. Furthermore, we had another approach on edit image, because sometimes our use case was not to download an edited image, but we want it referred as a URL. So I will just show you in the system. In here, oh, it's difficult. I need to move this fella here. There, I have the photo that I showed before. If I right click and look at the context menu, I can see edit image. I go in here, and first I will try the download. I'll click edit image. In here, I want to use this one as part of a PowerPoint presentation where I don't want the background, for example. So as I mentioned before, I can choose to have GDPR or SMYK or the original color space. I can also choose different formats, and one of the formats is the transparent background. This, of course, requires that this photo is uploaded in Danfoss with a clipping path on it. So this one has, so I will just click on the transparent background, and then I will click download. And then it starts to download and progress the image. And there I will open it. And here you can see that the background is removed, and I can now put this image on top of another image if that's the use case. So it takes away the background. And the main purpose is here that Otherwise, if we couldn't do this, then people in the system would find the asset, download it, forward to the, the advertising agency or the graphical department saying, could you please provide me one without the background, and then they will have it returned, and all single sourcing is just lost. So we try to do it inside the system, even though you don't have the graphical competences in doing so the system can do it for you. The other edit metadata that we did is the public URL. So that is editing the image and get the public URL. So if I go in here again, same, but then we also introduced some predefined formats because we knew on the website that they always use some specific sizes of their images. So we said, why not predefine them? You can still do them customized, but you can also predefine them. So I will just take this one as a banner. It's called the image spot in the website world. So this will have this format. This is what I want to display. And instead of downloading, I will now generate a URL. So I click here, generate URL, and you can see this goes into our asset library with some cropping marks. You can see here at the end that there are some cropping marks here determining where the picture is cut or cropped. So if I click on copy and I go into any browser and paste the link where you can see these cropping, press enter, you will have the drawing on the fly with these settings. So you don't need to download the file in order to upload it in another application. You can just refer to the URL. And that's also our main approach for everyone. Don't download files because we have multiple sources. Then refer to URLs, because then if this is also updated, it would also be reflected in here. So this is pretty smart when Marcom is also doing some kinds of newsletters and so forth. They just need a reference to a partial motif on the image here. So this comes in quite handy. Yes, then I return here. I think that was all about the edit image. A little bit about our Shutterstock. It's not that old. We introduced it half a year ago or something like that. So the purpose is that we want to synchronize Shutterstock to Danfoss because we need single sourcing. So when people are mainly is Marcom employees, they purchase an image or a video or an audio file, for that matter, in Shutterstock. Shutterstock is the one that we are using for these purposes. When they license this, they are forced to get that image or that asset into Danfoss and then publish and share from within there. This makes, again, single sourcing. We will have a seamless management of rights. We will also have an approval and notification flow because when you license it, this here is from Shutterstock in the basket where I'm about to license this asset. Then I put which asset type is it for. This is for our asset type photos. I put in a title. I put my employee number, and then I have maybe a comment. And when I click license, then next day, this one will appear in our DAM system with a tab that you can see here called Shutterstock information. So here I have the reference to a Shutterstock ID. I know when it is licensed. I have the Shutterstock username because I have the employee number. It looks it up in our Active Directory and knows this is Mia. And the short information or other information is the one that I typed in here. And then all the keywords that are in Shutterstock will also be synchronized into Danfoss. So users, when they search, they can search on the same parameters, on the same values as they could in Shutterstock and still find it in the search inside our DAM system. Furthermore, all the assets which are synchronized via Shutterstock is then when you have a search and a result page in Danfoss, you will see it with this bullet extension icon that you can see, okay, this is a synchronized asset from Shutterstock. So you have that information here. And you can, of course, also in the system via search for all the assets coming from Shutterstock. So it's all tied up here. So this is very, very good and also easy to search. And then we also ensure that these assets are properly reused in the organization.
I think that that's certainly a use case that's important and relevant for many other customers out there, to have a guarantee that that you have a single license for an image and not, you know, buying one image more than once. Do you have an idea, or do you have a benchmark of the waste that you kind of not have in the future, or the money that you potentially save in this case by just having the single source thing in DAMHub?
Yeah, unfortunately not. We would have loved to have that, but we don't have anything that we can measure other than you know, having single sourcing and things that we know that should be in place. But we don't have any numbers on this, unfortunately.
And okay, and the nice thing is that Shutterstock really gives you also the security that the image rights are definitely okay, and not like generative AI, where you can, you know, conjure up any image, but where the provenance is at least as of now still kind of questionable. So that's also kind of nice here, that with the Shutterstock approach. Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
Last is our product reference, which is very comprehensive. You could also see that on the numbers with 300,000 asset, which has in the matrix need to be allocated to 800,000 code number products in the system. So the purpose of doing this matrix or this allocation is, of course, that we need to allocate the assets to the products so that we can publish the assets on the downstream channels in the website and in the product store and so forth. And as you can see here to the right, we have different approaches, dynamically, statically, and attributes in here. So we have different ways that we can allocate these. And I want to go directly to the system and show you. Just find it here. If I go into, I can take this one, just a random one on metadata, and I'll go into product references. I'll just remove these ones. Here you can see a dynamic product type hierarchy, and you can see our structure of products in here. If I expand the hierarchy further down, you can see how we have built our entire product portfolio into a hierarchy, or a taxonomy actually. And I'll just go to the leaf node down here, solenoid valve, and maybe a type. There comes the code numbers, SKUs, and all the parent node are just hierarchies where we need to split these 800,000 in more fact-oriented chunks. So this is the hierarchy that we're working with, but this is a huge amount of data. So if I am, for example, a product manager or a DAM owner, I will search for solenoid valve. And if I then look at solenoid valves, there will be a lot of different proposals for solenoid valves because we have them quite a lot in a lot of different areas. So we introduced a customization that could filter on our product entities. So I say I only want to find the solenoid valves within refrigeration and air conditioning business units. So I click here, there, and then I'll see in here, just a second, did I click? Oh, that was wrong. One time. And if I now click solenoid valve, you can see it is reduced to only 4. So that makes it much easier to say, okay, I'm searching within my business entity because we have so many different users, so the choice will be easier. And if I zoom a little bit here and I hover, then you can see the hover text. We spent quite a time on adjusting this one. So the hover text here consists on the path of the hierarchy that you can see on the first 2 lines. The second 2 lines are PIM IDs. That's the reference to our product information management system. So this 6694 is the ID in the PIM system. So if I'm a product manager and I'm more into those kind of numbers, because that's what I usually work with, I can also type ahead for that and then select the same because it's the same. If I choose a product type, here, I'll just zoom out a little bit again, BV250B. I choose this one as a type. That's this lowest node references just before the products in the system, I can then choose the value here in the parent node, click this node and see all the code numbers beneath it. So it's the same as you saw in the collection picker, but just in another display. And here you can see all the different code numbers. Some are in different colors. So the black ones are the ones that are registered as the active code number, still for sale. The blue ones are those that are marked for deletions. They are still valid in the system, but they are being phased out. People have to be aware of that. And then the last one, I don't know whether there's an example here, is the red ones. Those have been deleted from our PIM system, but they are still in reference here in DAMP because it has been allocated to an asset, and for legal purposes, we need to keep the history, but you can just see that it is red. For different purposes, it could be nice to have all these assets to see what's actually in EV250B. We made this copy functionality. So if you copy all the assigned values, I'll say copy, and then I open, for example, Notepath. I can then paste in all the code numbers with a semicolon separator and utilize that for different purposes. So a lot of the product managers actually use this, not so much for that purposes, for other purposes. It's neat, nice, and very easy to work with for them.
Mia, thank you very much. Sorry for jumping in here, but we're already a bit over time. No, but super interesting insights. And we have a couple of questions. Maybe if you can go back to your slide number 7, if I recall correctly, because there many questions came in at the same time there, which was about the folder structure and the subfolder structure, basically. So question number 1 was, do you also save work in progress assets in your DAM hub?
Yeah, no, we do not. So work in progress assets, yes, not files, meaning the file that you upload. And I see a file being a binary file without metadata, and the two things combined is an asset. So the files can be uploaded, and that has to be done. And then it will be maybe uploaded, it will be uploaded in the progress because it's not finalized with the metadata yet. So it's allowed to be able to, keep enriching the asset, but we have not opened up for changing the asset inside Danfoss. It's the final material that gets in here.
Thank you very much. Question number 2 also about that slide, or that topic was, aren't there many employees who see all the images to be released but are not responsible for all of them?
Yes, definitely, because a lot of the view only could be sales representatives that they want to find an image for a customer presentation or something like that. And that's also why we have a comprehensive search. So they can search, okay, I only want pictures of products within my organization. And then they have to be taught that you go into the search widget organization and then narrow down, your search results from there, or in the general search up here in the top. So it requires, because we have so many different assets, that people are good at searching. But here we also have collections in our application. So if we want to gather, for example, corporate communication, so images that are selected for external PowerPoint presentation or fancy images, they have made a collection, and there we can refer to collections. So people that are not so often using Danfoss only for view only, we can then share a link to that collection where we have picked some interesting assets for PowerPoint creation, for example.
Okay, great. There's a longer one. Let me read it out. Do you have 3D assets as well, especially for product sets when you have individual assets for each product in the set or bundle? Do you also maintain the spatial relations of the individual 3D assets to each other? EJ, we have shower sets and the 3D assets for the shower head and hose have to be positioned in relation to each other.
Yeah. So we have asset relations in here in the system. So we have something called product store visual set, where you can kind of combine different assets together. And we also have some places, for example, for software, where we upload a zip folder with different files in it, because it is always published as a zip file. So we have these kind of relations, and we also have a lot of 3D models, but we do not yet, at least, have this possibility of this spinning, you know, the 3D. We just store it. We have a preview and we publish it, but we don't have this spinning of the asset. Not yet, at least.
Okay. Another one is, what is the difference between archived and retired in your folder structure?
So if you have an installation guide, a document, an installation guide, and it is released, and then you have some changes to the document, so this installation guide is updated with another version, then you put the old version in archived. That means that archive for us is still published, exposed outside Danfoss, so customers can still find it on Google. We can still find it in our archive libraries on our website, because people still need to go in on an outdated product to find how was this installed or how do I need to service it. So that's the archive one that is still published, allowed for customers to see. And then the next level is retired. That's where it's only internally. So then we withdraw it from outside and then it is retired. So it's like, you know, just an additional step that we need to distinguish between the different versions out there. And also when customers search, they can go into the archive and then they know that it is archived. So that's the difference.
Thank you very much. There's one more question here. Does Danfoss still use SharePoint, but the other way around? So are you exporting assets from CELUM to SharePoint or Microsoft 365 in general?
No, not yet. I think that it will maybe come, but I think our approach will be a little bit different. So instead of having a directly connector into a SharePoint, which could be valid, I think that we will utilize this asset exposure. So for example, our intranet is based on SharePoint. This might as well just be one of these applications here, and they can find our assets via the asset API, just like everyone else. So this is just another consuming system. So again, if nothing else is proven, we will always go this route, call the API, and that's reflecting to the assets here, the asset binary, and use that in the application, even though it's an intern and also a SharePoint application. So until further notice, this is the way that we will go. We have been discussing it a little bit back and forth, but I think that's our approach, because we are right now trying to introduce that for our internal intranet pages.
Okay, great. There's still questions coming in. Maybe one final short one. Is the image editor developed for Danfoss, or is it a plugin?
I think it's a combination, because I think that we made the customizations about the color space and utilizing the clipping path to a customization to begin with. And then I think it was taken into the standard product offering for others to use. I'm not certain, but I think these parts are standard offerings, but not the URL. I think that's specifically for us still.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, great. There's still questions coming in. We will answer them afterwards, because we're really over time. Thank you very, very much, Mia, for those really great insights. Thank you, Reinhard, for co-hosting and the many questions there. Yes, let me quickly conclude with thanking all of the audience for staying with us even a bit longer than planned. Please also visit us online, find more information there, and feel free to reach out to us on any topic, especially also the topic today. We and Mia will be very happy to answer all of the questions. I thank you again and wish everyone a very good afternoon. Goodbye.
Bye.